Hello, everybody, and welcome to Deadheadland. It's one more Saturday morning here on Deadheadland TV, and I'm Happycat, and I'm happy to be here and glad you're tuning in. And I'm just looking right now on Facebook. Hey, it is working. The stream is working. We're live right now on Deadheadland Facebook, on Deadheadland Films on YouTube, on twitch.tv/Deadheadland, and probably a few other places. Please comment and let me know you're watching. We should be able to see the comments here and be able to respond to you, whatever format or channel you're watching on. This is going to become my regular Saturday morning show for a little while. One more Saturday morning here on Deadheadland TV. I'm going to be talking to different people, musicians and authors and people in the world of Grateful Dead. And hey, okay, we can see some comments. Thank you, David, for commenting, because that helps us know that you're out there. And anyways, just wanted to clue you in. Start checking Deadheadland Saturday mornings, generally around 10 a.m. Pacific time. I've got a few interviews lined up for the next few weeks, and I want to be talking about local music and national music and international music, things that would interest Deadheads, not strictly Grateful Dead music, although that is kind of our main theme. But I like all sorts of music, and I especially love bands that are doing new and original music, so I want to encourage people to check that out. And there's a lot of shows going on all the time, and I like to keep people abreast of it. I do tend to be a little focused here on the Bay Area music scene, and even more focused here in Marin County, since that's where I live, but I don't want to limit it to just that. So if you're a band out there and you want to get the word out about what you're doing, shoot me an email and let's get you on the air and let's talk about your music or share your music. Anyways, I also do this semi-regular, not regular, but occasionally regular show that I like to call Books of the Dead, my unofficial Grateful Dead book club, the Grateful Read Club. And there's so many great books out there about the Grateful Dead. And there's always new ones. Every year there's something new coming out, someone with a new perspective or something new to share. And one of the authors that has put out a number of Grateful Dead books is my friend Bob Minkin. He's put out, he's a really well-known photographer, of course. And he's put out several photography books, Live Dead, and then his came out with his Just Jerry book a few years ago, which was really wonderful. Followed that up with Just Bob, which is about Bob Weir. And this year we have a new book coming out, and you may have heard of it. It's called Just Phil. And Bob's been doing a Kickstarter for that. The Kickstarter is still going on. And for another week, I believe, you can get in on the Kickstarter deal. And he's done really well with it. And we're going to talk to him about that and how the book is coming along. And also just share some of his photos and some of his stories. So rather than just listen to me ramble, let me bring in my guest, Bob Minkin. Hey, Bob, how are you?
Hey, happy one more Saturday morning, Brian.
Yeah, very good. Good to see you. And thank you for coming on this morning. And really happy to just get to chat with you about music and Grateful Dead and Phil Lesh. And let me first just ask about your book, your upcoming book, Just Phil. Tell me a little bit where the idea from that came and how it's going, how the Kickstarter is going, and etc.
Yeah, thanks. Well, you know, it's part of my what I call the Just series, I guess. About 4 years ago, I was kicking around ideas with Anne, my wife Anne, and coming up with like what would be a good book idea, book project. And she goes, "What about a book like just focusing on just Jerry?" And I was like, "Just Jerry," kind of rolled off the tongue nice. And I have so many photos that I hadn't put out there in the world of Jerry, just doing a deep dive. So I put together that book. That was 4 years ago, and it was very successful. And it really sparked the impetus to focus on other members of the band, like, such as Just Bobby, the Bob Weir book that came out about a year and a half ago. And of course, it was inevitable that Phil would be next. And, there's so many more photos of Phil I have than Jerry, of course, because Jerry I have from like the mid 70s to 1995. But Phil, is kept going up till the present. In fact, he just announced shows this December at the Warfield. And I saw him, I photographed them a week ago at the Fillmore. So, there's such a wealth of material I have of Grateful Dead, Phil era stuff, and then all the other things, the Further, the Dead and Company, I'm not the Dead, and of course all the great shows at Terrapin Crossroads.
Yeah, Phil really has done so much and played with so many people. I mean, everybody from the Dead, all the surviving members, all have different projects and all do so many different things. But Phil, probably more than anyone, has just really stretched the boundary. He's played with so many different lineups, and I'm a huge fan. As you know, I love them all, but I'm probably Phil's biggest, or the biggest Phil fan.
Well, and Phil,
it's not like Phil's better than that, but just I love what he does, and it's so creative, and to me, it's so true to the spirit of the Grateful Dead, and is that he's not trying to recreate something; he's trying to create something new, always.
Exactly. And the other cool thing is he's bringing up people who we may not, the world at large may not be very familiar with, and exposing them to the Deadhead community. Like such as Jackie Green, for example. The first time I saw Jackie Green was when Phil played with him at the Sweetwater in, what was that, like 2007, I think. And I had no idea who Jackie Green was. I just saw this young 20-something-year-old guy on stage with Phil. But then about 3 songs in, Jackie sang Sugaree. I don't know if you were there, you remember that. But I mean, I became a huge fan after that, because he just owned that song,
Yeah. I first time I saw Jackie is a similar thing, and I think it might have been that same run or maybe just a little bit after it at the Santa Barbara Bowl. And he was playing with Phil there, and I had never heard the name Jackie Green prior to him being on the Phil lineup, and I was like, who is this? I want, big names from Phil. I want Warren Haynes. I want, Jimmy Herring. I want, who's this Jackie Green guy? And
exactly.
I had that exact experience. I remember thinking, like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And when he cooked out that Sugaree, I remember I turned over to my date and I said, we're going to be seeing this kid for the rest of our lives. It's just like, he just had me at that Sugaree. Yeah. So
it's compelling, totally compelling. Yeah. And I hadn't seen Jackie in a while. I saw him a few weeks ago at Sweetwater, and it was great to see him and catch up. So.
Yeah, very good, very good. Yeah. Phil brings in so many new musicians, and so now, like with Rick from Goose, and bringing in the
Jennifer
Natalie and Jennifer, and rest in peace James Casey, and so many great people. Joe Russo. I mean, Joe Russo had a really cool thing going on before he, joined Further and did a bunch of Phil and Friends stuff. But really, like, it takes people to another level when Phil shines his light on them. And and I think he also helps the musicians take their music to another level. Like I've been a huge Lebo fan, Dan Leibowitz, for many, many years. And then he played with Phil. And he played a lot with Phil, and I love Lebo. I remember thinking he's probably my favorite guitar player after Jerry, just in terms of not technical, whatever. I don't know. I don't understand that level where he takes it energetically and emotionally, and where he takes me energetically and emotionally with his playing. But then when Lebo started playing with Phil, his guitar playing just went to a whole nother place. And last time I saw ALO, I'm like, yeah, definitely. Phil has had an influence on this band, which was one of my favorite bands before any of them played.
Me too. I used to see ALO long before Lebo had an association with Phil, and Lebo, his guitar playing, it's riveting watching him play. His expressions, his movements, the sounds that come out of that electrified acoustic of his.
Yeah. Well, I like to take a little credit for that, because the first time they were putting together one of the Passover shows, and I just said, Ross was putting the band together, but I went to Ross. I'm like, you have to get Dan Leibowitz. And that was the first time Lebo played with Phil on stage. So
really? One of the Passover shows? Oh, really? Oh, that's cool, because I photographed those Passover shows, gigs, shows, a Passover show, a Passover Seder, and music.
Seder and a show is what they were.
Seder and a show. I'll have a Seder and a show, please. Make that a double.
Because ALO had played at Terrapin a couple of times, and Lebo had sat in with different people at bar shows, but the first time he played with Phil was at the first Seder in a Show, which I think was 2013, I believe.
Yeah.
Anyways,
right.
So We love Phil Lesh, and so this book is a collection of your photos of Phil over the years and stories as well. It's not just a picture book. I mean, it is a picture book, but you flesh it out with. You're an author too. You're writing words, and
Yeah, stories. We all have lots of stories, and I put some of mine in the book as they relate to the pictures of Phil with the Dead and with his other bands. And I also have hit up other folks who have
Mhm.
played with Phil or knew Phil, know Phil, and their experiences and their insights. So we will have some of that in the book as well.
Oh, okay. Okay. Will they be like actually like writing like little essays or chapters, or are you just you
Um,
talking with them, or?
well, in some cases, I kind of interview them and then transcribe it. In other cases, when they're more comfortable just writing it out, it might be like in Scott Guberman's case, how he got to start playing with Phil and what it means to him to play with Phil, and then other people I tap that hopefully will be able to make it into the book, like Pete Sears and some
Mhm.
other bass players of renown, like Reed Mathis he wants to get in on it. And I still need to contact Dave Schools. So if you're listening, Dave, I need to contact you.
So this is still I know you did the Kickstarter fundraiser and that's still going on, but the book it's not a completed book yet. This is still a work in
Oh, no.
progress, and it's I assume you have a plan, but it probably also grows and changes as you're putting it together, I would think.
Exactly. Going through all the photos and slides and negatives is a daunting process. I mean, I have these are negative sheets, and I have
Hmm.
lots of them.
Ah,
So
and
here,
it
this
is
is,
well, a lot of this is going to be from when you were shooting on film.
well, yeah, anything pre 2005. Like here's November 6th, 1997, David Gans and Broken Angels with Phil Lesh, which is
Uh-huh.
one of the first times Phil stepped out after Jerry passed
Right.
and was doing shows. And I heard he was playing at the Maritime Hall. um, I went down there and shot the heck out of it. So just going through all of these and pulling out ones that I think are really the best and putting them in a folder by year. And then I go through them and distill them down because the book's going to be about 200, a little over 200 pages. And I wanted to have a nice flow and design and each page, how the photos relate to each other, because I'm a designer as well.
Hmm.
So it's important. And if you've seen my other books, you'll see what I'm talking about, just the way the negative spaces and just how the images lay out is
Uh-huh.
really important. To tell a story as it weaves through the 70s into the 80s, 90s, up until the present era.
Uh-huh. So, and you're doing, I mean, you're not just the photographer and the storyteller and the author. You're doing the design of the full design of this book as well yourself.
Yeah, I'm also a
This is a
graphic
Bob
designer.
Minkin production. This
It,
is
it totally is.
yeah.
My wife and Ann does the proofreading, so it's
Uh-huh.
very much in-house in that way. Um, yeah, I went to school. My degree is actually a graphic design degree, and that's what I did after I graduated. I worked in New York at various advertising agencies and marketing agencies, and I had one of my fantasies come true in the early 2000s when Grateful Dead Productions hired me to design the part of the latter part of the Dick's Picks series,
Hmm.
and like Dick's Picks 25 to the end, like the ones with the stamps, if anybody remembers those,
Uh-huh.
and also their Vault releases like Fillmore West and one from the Vault, two from the Vault, their Vault series of videos. So that to me was like a dream come true to do that type of work for my favorite band.
Yeah, and you've got, I mean, you've got the pictures and you've got the design gig there. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a miracle, really, how that all happened. I
Yeah,
mean,
just from a little technical standpoint, do you work in InDesign? Is that where you're?
yeah,
Are you,
the book, the page, yeah, I use the page layout program is InDesign,
uh-huh.
and the photos I mostly edit in Adobe Lightroom, and sometimes I have to go into Photoshop to do certain things that Lightroom can't do. But Lightroom is really the bulk of it, and I
Uh-huh.
recommend that to anybody who's an aspiring photographer
Okay.
to plug for Lightroom. But yeah, it's basically Adobe products InDesign and
Okay.
Lightroom.
And not that we're plugging it. I have interest
No.
because I shoot as well, and I took InDesign courses in college and really liked it, and then never really went beyond that with it, but it seems like it's a really great program. So
Yeah, I
we
mean,
might be
unless you're
getting
printing
too
the book.
technical for most people, but I think that's interesting stuff. So
Yeah, there's a lot of technical because the photos have to be converted to CMYK, and how they look on your monitor is RGB. So how RGB translates to CMYK. So I could really geek out on this stuff, but that's all important to how it comes out in the finished product. You have to kind of know what you're doing.
Right.
Or
Well,
hire somebody that knows.
and that was part of why I asked that, because I know some folks hire somebody else to do the book design, and so that to me is really interesting that you're doing all aspects of it. So
yeah, I've done it for other people, other photographers, like Jared Johnson did a book on the closing of Winterland in '78. I did his book, and Steve Schneider, great photographer who lives up in Seattle now, he put out a book, the first 3 songs, where I did the full whole production of his book as well. But working on my own books, my own photos, of course, is it's kind of difficult because I'm so close to the photos. Sometimes I need to get another opinion, so I get my son involved because I'm getting a 26-year-old opinion, and of course my wife has been with me through a lot of this, just to get another, like how a producer works with a band. They can help give them some guidance on stuff when it's hard to decide which is what.
yeah, well, very, very cool. This is really an exciting project. When are you when do you think the book's going to be published? What do you have a date set or a goal date?
Yeah, the way it's working now, my plan is it'll be ready to go to the printer in January, and I should receive the finished books in maybe in April or May. But I'll know better once it goes to the printer. I'll have a more accurate date. But on the Kickstarter, I put May, just to give myself a little wiggle room.
Okay, very good. And I guess how much time you have and how long that takes. But I know, well, I'm terrible at post-production, which is why we're doing this live. But I know just things take time, and oftentimes take more time than we planned. So
exactly. But I've done this a few times now. I kind of got the process down. The most difficult part really is just editing the photos, like which photos are going in the book. Because I'm confronted with a lot of photos that I'm really happy about, but let's say I can only pick one. So that's where it gets.
What's nice with the Kickstarter is that people who believe in you and want the product that you're going to be putting out, the book that you're going to be putting out. Basically, they're buying it in advance, which gives you the budget to do the work. So I know sometimes people are writing a book and trying to figure out, okay, but I gotta eat and pay the rent and do so. So this is your job, and it's kind of like we're hiring you to do this job and make this book for us. That's
a very accurate, interesting, and accurate way to look at it. Because while I'm doing this, I'm not doing other things that might be income producing, like other photo editing, photo shoots, and other graphic design and website projects, because this is become almost my full-time job until I get it done. So I thank the supporters. There's almost 400 of them now, and it gives me the confidence and impetus to charge ahead and get this done.
That's really excellent that you've gotten that much ahead of time. And then for those people that don't get in on the Kickstarter, you will have some additional copies available when it does get published, or?
Yeah, for sure. They'll be available on my website, and I'll be doing, because I'm getting more printed than what the Kickstarter will, need.
And remind me, I know you sent it to me, but what's your website again? BobMinkin.com or BobMinkinPhotography.com?
It's actually it's MinkinPhotographyStore.com.
Okay, and I'm going to put that in the I know you sent it to me, and I just don't have it right now. But Minkin Photography.
If it's out on the Kickstarter, or you just don't want to deal with Kickstarter, you can just go straight there, and you can pre-order the book there, and you can also get just Jerry and just Bobby are still available, as well as all my photos. I mean, if you don't have to buy anything, you just go there and look around. It's fun because I have a ton of my photography up on there.
Yeah, you sell. I know you sell large prints and stuff of certain pictures, and it's always really cool to see that somebody wants to get one of your pictures and wants to get a big one to put up on the wall. And
yeah, especially if it's a show like they went to, like I was at that Shoreline show or that Oakland show, or whatever, and that's what kind of got me into it, because when I started going to shows, I wanted to have like a scrapbook, something to put on my wall, a picture from the show that I went to. So
yeah.
Kind of how I got into it.
Well, and I know I have a memory of probably seeing you on lot at some point back in the 80s or something. And I know I've seen photos of you. You used to actually sell pictures out at shows in the parking lot, right?
Yeah, I used to print them up in my darkroom and take them to shows in a box after the show, or before the show. I'd be hanging in the parking lot selling prints, and that's one of the ways I supported myself as a teenager and a young 20s person. Going to dead shows and and other shows and too.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that. You're just like the rest of us. You're a deadhead. You're not just doing this because hey, those deadheads, I'm gonna make some money.
I'm one of them. I'm one of them.
Life, like it's all of our life, right?
Exactly. I'm a fan too. Yep. I waited online and waited all night online. And
well, let's you sent me a few pictures. Let's switch over to those pictures and hear some of your stories about going to dead shows. And I think where we're going to start is actually some pictures you sent of a Winterland show back in the mid to late 70s there.
77.
Yeah. Okay. Let me give me just a moment here to switch to the screen share, and let's see if those pictures come up here. Whoop. That wasn't it. There we go. Okay. Can you see the pictures now, everybody? Yeah.
I see it. If it counts.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, it's there on the screen. I'm double checking on my phone that people can see them here. Great. So this is Winterland 1978?
77 actually.
77.
So the story behind this picture is I wanted to see the Grateful Dead play New Year's Eve at Winterland. Winterland was the last of the original venues from the 60s that was still in existence at the time. The Avalon and the Fillmore West, Carousel, all those places were long gone, but Winterland was still there. So I read about a New Year's show that was the year before at the Cow Palace in Relics Magazine, and it just sounded so compelling. I was like, oh, when they play next year New Year's, I got to go to San Francisco. But it was a little daunting because I was living in Brooklyn at the time, and I was like 17, 18 years old. So how exactly was that going to happen? So when I got word of the show, I didn't know how to get tickets. I just looked up, called information and found the number for Winterland Productions in San Francisco. And I called them, and a person who answered, I was very lucky. I remembered her name because that would come in handy later. She said, yeah, just send us a money order. How many you want? 2 for each night. Okay, it's this amount of money, which was probably like $45 for 3 pairs of tickets for 3 shows. So I sent her the money order, and they mailed me the tickets. So with tickets in hand, because I was meeting my friend out here, he was also from Brooklyn, but he went out ahead of me. So I didn't really have hardly any money. So the only way I was able to come across was to take a Greyhound bus from New York to San Francisco. And that was a grueling adventure. But the problem is, once I got to San Francisco in the Greyhound bus terminal, I lost my wallet, and the tickets for the show and any money I had were in that wallet. So I was destroyed when that happened.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, this hippie guy I met on the bus, he let me stay at his place that night. And the next morning, with no wallet, no tickets, no money, he dropped me off in front of Winterland. And I was standing here with it. I took this picture right when he dropped me off. It was like drizzly out and gloomy, and people were already starting to line up for the show. This was 12/29/77 in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking, like, what the heck am I going to do? I came all this way, and now I have nothing, here. So my friend eventually showed up. He took a cab. I told him what happened, and I think he started to strangle me. But I pulled him off me. So he had some money, and I had some Thai stick. I don't know if people remember Thai sticks.
I do.
Yeah. Thai sticks was this really elevated weed from back then. It was hard to get, and I had some with me that I had in a suitcase, little attaché case. So I had some extra Thai sticks, and I sold a few of them outside of Winterland to get some money. And then my friend had some money, so I said, well, let's call up the Winterland. I'll ask for that person I spoke to. So I called up Winterland we had to find a phone booth, a directory, look up there it is, Winterland Productions. And I called them and I asked for her, and she was there. And I'll never forget her, Gloria Polito. And she remembered me because, oh yeah, you're the guy from New York who bought the tickets. So she said, well, if you can get over here we can sell you another set of tickets. And I was like, all right. So we found the cab, no Ubers then, and got down to Winterland Productions, and we met her, and she took her in our office, and I was all wide-eyed being in there, like, oh, Winterland Productions, look at all this stuff. And she sold us a fresh set of tickets. So that night, we were good for the 12, 29, 30, and 31.
That's awesome. Let's see what's next there. So this is at the show?
Yeah, that's from the New Year's night, because this is after midnight, because you can see some of the balloons are still there. They came on out. There's it's hard to see, but there's some silly strings hanging from Bobby's guitar. At New Year's, a bunch of stuff happened. Yeah. There was naked people in diapers on stage, and Bill Graham rode this Harley on this cable from the back of Winterland to the stage. He was dressed as a skeleton. He got off of it, and I remember he shook Bob Weir's hand, and the balloons came down, and these naked people were squirting silly string everywhere, and it was like pandemonium for Sugar Magnolia. Phil had some kind of hat on, a McLaren. I don't know.
McLaren something, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Very interesting, and that's a great shot. And look at Jerry there; he's in that moment. That's beautiful.
Oh yeah, they were cooking. 77. Every show was pretty much a great show in 77, and some were definitely, even more than others. And this run was pretty darn good.
I remember talking to Sam Cutler once about 77, and good old Sam took credit for a lot of things, and he said he worked the boys really hard and made them rehearse a lot before they went into the studio stuff for Terrapin, and he says that's why they were so tight that year. That's why that year was so good. So, and
and another thing is, it helps that they stood close together when they played.
Mm-hmm.
It's more interaction between band members, and you can see it here how close together they are. In later years, they were yards and yards apart, talking to each other through monitors. It's just not as intimate as a band playing close together when you can just physically feed off each other as well as mentally and musically.
That's really interesting to think about. I never really considered that, but here's another shot there.
That kind of illustrates it. Look at Jerry's face. He's carefully concentrating on what's going on. There's obviously a transition of some sort happening here where Bobby had to turn around and he's looking over at Phil, who's definitely doing something cool there. And Jerry's following, keeping what's happening here? It's who's leading right here, right? What's happening?
Yeah. Maybe someone who's a musician can tell by what chords they're playing, guess where they're in the middle of a China Rider or something.
Yeah, I was thinking it was possibly the Scarlet Fire transition.
Oh, okay.
But I never kept those notes. It's too much. How could I?
It's really challenging. I'm always impressed by Robbie Cohn. She kept notes. She always says, "No, I know what song this is from."
Yeah. She'll post. This is blah 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 84 Althea or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm like.
Wow.
Yeah, I go into things intending to do that, and sometimes I even keep a set list. But to get your set list and the pictures to correspond, that's tricky.
There's a handful of photos I could do it with because I knew I shot this during the first opening song, so I know they were playing Jack Straw, for example.
Right.
So there's a handful I can do that with, but certainly that's a minority.
Yeah, and there's that Billy behind the cymbal. I know it's always really hard to shoot drummers. They've got so much stuff in front of their faces.
In this case, a cymbal cut off his head.
Yeah. So in the future, I'm going to assume there may be a book called Just Billy or Just Mickey, and those will be a little more challenging, perhaps.
Yeah, I got good ones, but yeah, it's definitely more challenging. They're behind, the front people, and they just a lot of mic stands and a lot of
So at this stage, what kind of camera were you shooting with?
Well, for these shows, I moved up to a SLR, single lens reflex camera, Minolta SRT 101. Prior to this, I was using a Konica rangefinder. By the way, I should have brought them out. I have these cameras. I have the actual cameras. Yeah. I save all that stuff. In fact, I have the camera I shot my very first show with ever was this Kodak Instamatic here, which was the New Riders of the Purple Sage in 1974. At the Academy of Music in New York.
Oh,
but I just happen to have this one handy.
Just an Instamatic. That's great.
Yeah, remember with the flash bulbs?
Yeah.
So I moved up to an SLR, which is kind of like a real camera. And used that Minolta for a long time till I was able to save up and got the Nikon FM2, which I used for many years.
And these were shot black and white. This isn't.
Yeah, if it's black, if you see it black and white here, it was shot most probably on Kodak Tri-X film, and the color was usually shot on slide film like Eptachrome 400, push to 800. I could really geek out on this, so
yeah. Well, me too a little bit. I'm curious, and then I realized that that's not necessarily what everybody else wants to hear about. But
there might be a few photographers that are like, tell me more. But you can always, hey, I love talking photography, so anybody wants to shoot me messages or emails, I always like to answer questions about that stuff.
So here's Bobby and Phil kind of sharing a mic here, and
so what's going on here? That's kind of a rare moment, right? That if you've been to hundreds of Dead shows, how many shows you've been to where they share a mic? Like 2.
Well, right, and that kind of awkward, like, okay, who's going to turn left, who's going to turn right, kind of.
Or they bang into each other. The first time I seen them do that was at Blacksburg, Virginia, 1978. It was like, I couldn't believe it. It was like Donna, Jerry, and Bobby at the same mic. I took a picture of it, but it happened so like quickly. My picture's like blown out. It's overexposed, so nothing I'll ever put out in the world. But here, this is at Madison Square Garden. This was like what I call one of the great moments of Grateful Dead that at least I got to see. Was the return of St. Stephen on 10/11/83. And they just put all this out, I think, a year ago on the In and Out of the Garden box set. So much to my surprise, during, I think it was the Fortune Comes a Crawling part, they just stepped up together suddenly and started doing this, and I couldn't believe it. So I stood up on my chair. I was reasonably close, but I had to like get up above people, so I just got up on the chair because the Garden was a seated reserved seat show, and snapped off this progression here.
Yeah, this is some great stuff. And for just from a body position thing, if anybody thinks about looking at pictures of the Beatles, Paul McCartney was a left-handed bass player, and that's why they could have that thing where they're both kind of like holding their guitars out. And you see how Phil and Bobby have to turn different. Most people, it's challenging to share a mic when you're holding guitars. I guess that's all.
It gets in the way.
Yeah.
But the other thing to consider things like that is like, do you have your camera set for the proper exposure? It's manual. It's all manual. Aperture, shutter speed. You have the ASA or the ISO set right. So manual focus, because my eyes were much younger than manually focused.
Cameras are so advanced and so amazing now in the things they can do, but to still have those rudimentary skills and understanding of, light and aperture and film speed and all that stuff.
Tricky stuff.
And you can also fix things in Photoshop now, whereas back then fixing things in a dark room was a lot trickier.
Yeah, you were very limited. It was really hard to repeat things because I have a book of notes I kept, because let's say if you did a darkroom stuff on a photo, and then a month later you wanted to reprint that photo and make it the same way, you had to know, like in your darkroom, like how your developer, your temperature of it, the height of the enlarger, a multitude of settings, and you have to keep notes of that stuff.
Yeah. As opposed to just saving it as a Lightroom preset.
Exactly. Do it again. Click.
Here's another one of Phil and Bobby, and I don't want to move through the pictures quick, but just time is going.
All right, I'll move it along, man. So what's happening here? This is during the Europe '81 tour. I'd never been to Europe before, and I figured with the Grateful Dead, I found out they were doing a Europe tour. I was like, well, this would be a good time to go to Europe. I was going to go with this other guy who had been to Europe before, so at least I'd go with somebody who'd been there. But he flaked out on me, so I just went by myself and landed in Brussels on a plane ride so bumpy. No, I did land in Brussels, though.
No doubt.
I don't know if it was a plane ride so bumpy. But I followed the tour through Copenhagen, through Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, and Paris, and Spain. So this was the stop in Amsterdam, where the Dead played at this little club called the Melkweg, or Milky Way. And there's whole stories behind how the instruments, why Bobby's playing a Telecaster and why Bobby's playing a Yamaha, but you can read about that elsewhere. But the thing that's cool in this, one of the things that's cool in this photo is, again, look how close together they're playing. Of course, the stage was really small, but to see this kind of closeness and their expressions, Bobby, Phil, the way they're looking at the way especially Phil is looking over at Bobby, And I know this is from Bobby's birthday night, 10/16/81, because that night, for some reason, he was wearing a bow tie. So I
Ah.
know the shots with the bow tie as I go through my slides from both nights. Oh, that's the birthday night. So this is Bobby's 34th birthday at a hash bar in Amsterdam, taken by 22-year-old me
Hmm.
on a great experience of a
Yeah.
lifetime.
And for a lot of these things, part of what I love about and why I like to cover all the different Grateful Dead books is because you do get bits of these stories from everybody's book. So if you read Steve Parrish's book or Phil's book or whatever, they all kind of cover these same events, and so you get like the little details about like the what happened with the instruments or why they ended up playing at that certain club that night. So
Exactly.
we can't cover all the details there, but all the books put together build like the big story of the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, I love reading their accounts because I didn't know that stuff. I didn't know that because Steve Parrish was, he was doing it all. So
yeah, all the details. There's Phil. That's just awesome. I've
This
always
is
liked Phil's choice in T-shirts back in the day, and that's
well,
just
that's a Milkweg shirt. On the back of it says Grateful Dead at the Milkweg. I got one of those shirts.
oh wow.
Unfortunately, it's slightly tight on me now, so I don't really wear it. But you could see that it was really hot in the club. It was a small club. It was really broiling in there. So much smoke because the Europeans like mixing hash with their tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
Roll up these giant spliffs.
I hate that. Oh,
it was smoky in there.
yeah.
And you could see Phil is completely sweaty, his sweat dripping off his elbow. It was so sweaty that his glasses slipped off his face. He's not wearing glasses.
Right. That is a rare shot of Phil without his glasses.
Right,
yeah.
like totally sweaty. This is probably towards the end of the night because they didn't come on till about 11 at night. So they played till like, almost 2 a.m.
Yeah. And
this is another one from that series. This is cool. It's a square shot. And why is it square? Because another fellow on the tour that I met, Richard Russo, R.I.P., he was schlepping around a Hasselblad camera. And those are like big cameras that studio photographers use or wedding photographers. And I couldn't believe he brought it. And they're very expensive. And he brought one on tour. And at that show, they have usually you could put a roll of film. The film was only 12 exposures because the negatives were so big square negatives. So he handed me the camera at the show and said, here's a roll in here. It's your roll. Have fun. So I shot. This is one of the shots I took with the Hasselblad that he gave me that roll of film for. So I'll always thank him for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Now we're at this is Red Rocks, I believe.
It is Red Rocks, Colorado. So that's another one of those power places the Dead played. Like, I wanted to see them at the Fox Theater in Atlanta. I want to see them at Winterland. I wanted to see them at Red Rocks. So I read about Red Rocks the year before when they first played there in 78. So when they came back in 79, talking fast because we don't have much time. So when they came back in 79, I made sure, I got it together and did the trip out there. And I did the trip with the same person who I met out in Winterland a couple of years before. He was my traveling buddy back then, Joel, I'm still in touch with. He and I went, and what's happening here, somebody I think made some kind of little flying thing that was buzzing around, and everybody was looking up at it. I forgot what it was called, but and I can't remember more details about it, but I know something was flying around. Or maybe it was somebody like in an ultralight or something.
Yeah, because we didn't have drones back then.
No, it definitely wasn't a drone, but it was something like that. And everybody was looking up at it, including Phil and Mickey.
Oh, okay.
But I love that Phil got the big brown bass and Mickey's got the massive drum ensemble called The Beast.
Very cool. All right. And there's another one, action shot.
Yep. Beautiful bass.
Very cool stuff. All right. This is like 99, I think. This is
this is part of a series of some Phil with other people and maybe some offstage stuff. This was that great Phil and Friends run they did in April 99 at the Warfield with Trey joining them for that. Steve Kimmock and Trey were the guitarists, and Paige McConnell was keyboards, and Donna Jean, and it was just killer. I mean, that's one of my favorite Phil and Friends runs.
Those 3 shows are amazing. They're all up on bootlegs of them are on YouTube that are easy to listen to, that have video and stuff. Not high quality, but you can listen and watch them. And I wasn't at those shows, but I had tapes back when people traded tapes, and I had really good tape connections. I had tapes of those shows within 24 hours of them happening, and then I made tapes for my whole chain of people. But I was like, after listening to those, I'm like, I'm not going to miss any Phil and Friends. And I lived in LA at the time, but at the next month, and I remember Phil was doing like a Warfield run about once a month that summer.
A
And
lot.
I came up for all of them. I remember, I think the next one had members of DNB and Jorma. And, but
Exactly.
anyways, after missing these shows, I'm like, I'm not going to miss any Phil and Friends, you know? And,
What it takes. For sure.
yeah. That was the music was getting exciting again. Here's a more recent picture there with
Yeah, this is very recent. This is from when Terrapin, the folks that run Terrapin, the Lesh family, they put together. Brian, you got Graham here. They put together this under the moniker of Sunshine Daydream. They played a gig right in my hometown, Novato, at Stafford Lake, with Moon Alice and a whole mess of great musicians. So this is on stage, backstage before they went on. We have Graham, Barry Sless, Phil, and Pete Sears. What a great group of people to take a minute to let me take their picture.
absolutely.
So the pictures, in the book go from 76, went from Syracuse War Memorial when I shot them up there, right up till a few months ago here. And
yeah. And then I know you weren't able to make it, but just last night was Graham's band Midnight North had their new album release party, and Phil came and sat in for a few songs, and it was really just really great, just how it all keeps on going. And then going to see Barry a little later tonight at Perry's. He's playing with Casual Coalition, and I just want to say,
oh, Barry's playing tonight.
Pete Sears and Barry are two of the nicest people in the world.
Oh.
I just need to say that they're just wonderful people.
So wait, Barry's playing tonight at Perry's?
Yeah, it's Casual Coalition, C-Max band, and Barry is going to be playing with them. I'm assuming on pedal steel. I'm actually after you at 11 today. I'm going to be talking with C-Mac, and they're going to give us a couple of preview songs for tonight's gig. But that's Perry's tonight, $15, I think 8 o'clock. So
yeah, I might have something to do tonight.
Yeah, there you go. All right, here's Phil and Bobby actually got the action shot there.
Yeah, this was a sweet moment. This was at the TAM, what's that called? The Mount Tam Summit, Sound Summit.
Oh, yeah, Sound Summit, yeah.
So it's a benefit for, the Parks Department, I think, in Mount Tam that Michael Nash puts on. And this year it was amazing because Bobby was playing and Phil was playing. And they hadn't seen each other, I think, in a while. And Bobby and Phil met up. That's Matt Bush in the middle there. That's Bobby's manager and main man. So, again, it's being in the right place at the right time. I just happened to be standing in the vicinity of this and saw them meet up together. And I believe Phil had a gift for Bobby. I think he had like an Apple Watch or something to give him. I can't remember exactly. But it was really, really sweet to see them seeing each other, getting together for the first time in a while. And then this impromptu hug, which is this shot here. Yeah. I mean, I thought my heart just melted right here.
Oh, absolutely. Just that joy on Bobby's face. That's just like so authentic. And I love that. That's great. Yeah, that's here's Phil back at Terrapin Crossroads. Just, almost just seeing that wood paneling makes me a little sad,
A little weepy eyed. Yeah, this is not long before COVID hit. Andy Logan of Grateful Guitars Foundation, he is the steward of Jerry's alligator guitar, and he very graciously loans it out, really, to people to play. He doesn't keep it locked up behind a glass case. And in this case, he brought it to Terrapin for, I think, Stu Allen. And really anybody there got to see it, hold it, and interact with it. I think you did, too.
Yeah, I have a great picture that you snapped of me holding it, and I was trying to be a little rock and roll with it, but
so it was really sweet to get Phil to pose with it, and I just love this shot.
Yeah, a couple of years ago at the Guild when the Terrapin Family Band played, Andy brought the guitar play, and I was just hanging out with the band after the show, and I actually just got like not just pose for a picture. I got to hold it for like 10 minutes, and it wasn't plugged in, but I was sitting there noodling on it. I was playing, actually, I don't play very well, but I was playing like a little Dark Star jam on it. Nobody could hear because it wasn't plugged in. And actually, Eric Krasno looks over at me like, "What are you doing?" Funny moment. Oh, I'm playing guitar. I know, not really, but you guys play guitar. But it's just so cool that Andy has this, and he's very, very sweet and very generous to let people hold this like really awesome piece of Grateful Dead history. And
he knows what it means to people. He knows the effect the guitar has and wants people to share in its energy.
Yeah.
which is just a wonderful thing. And if you want to know more about them, I mean, this is something definitely worth plugging, is the Grateful Guitars Foundation. You can go on their website and see what they're up to.
Really great stuff, and he has these guitars and facilitates other people that own some of Jerry's instruments and Bob's instruments and stuff to get them into musicians' hands, and then also gets guitars made, some high quality, super high quality replicas of some of these great guitars, and gets them gifted to some of the great musicians out there. So it's just really wonderful what Andy does with that, and he's such a sweet man and so generous with his energy about this, you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Let's see. I'm going to move a little quicker because we're just getting out of time.
Here's just another sweet moment that I'm really privileged to be in the presence to capture some of these things and to be welcome to. Donna Jean Gottschall and Phil. This is backstage at the Maritime Hall, which had a nice run for a while in San Francisco in the late 90s and early 2000s. Lots of great shows there. So here, Phil and Friends was doing things there. The Q played there. And here's Phil with his all access pass.
Yeah, I remember one of the this might be from one of those Philharmonia shows where
I think it was
Christmas presentation, and Donna came out and sang, and he did some traditional kind of weird Christmas stuff that Phil likes to get weird and
that's right.
Yeah.
So just a sweet moment, her head on his shoulder like that. It wasn't anything I said, do this or do that. I don't like to manipulate my subjects very much. I like them to kind of be natural, and this was very sweet.
Yeah, very nice. All right, here's another good one. David Crosby and Phil kind of doing the bunny ears there.
Yeah, they're doing another one with their middle figure too. I didn't post that one, but it's just Phil, ever the prankster, giving David Crosby the rabbit ears. Again, this was also at the Maritime Hall, one of the early pre-Phil and Friends type things. It could have been a Philharmonia. I'd have to check, but it's cool. Crosby's wearing a Well shirt, the old Grateful Dead Well internet. Really used to be a forum chat group. Yeah. So this was a cool day. I got to come to Phil's house in Marin County. And that's his dog. I think this dog, he had two dogs. They were named after Grateful Dead songs. I think this was Stella. Not sure.
That's just a great shot. And Phil looking over the rim of his glasses there. And
it was very sweet. This is on their back deck. And he was being interviewed. I was there with JC Flyer, JC Joannis, who was interviewing him. And then we did some shots of Phil in the house and then outside. And his dog came in. It was just very sweet.
Very great. And here we are. I guess this is out of order. We're back at Red Rocks again.
Whoa! Back at Red Rocks. Just rocking and rolling. The Dead, they weren't static. They rocked. I mean, look at the drummers. Look at Bobby and Phil interacting. There's some good moment happening. Man, I wish I knew what this was. Maybe they were doing Passenger, which was a pretty rocking song. Who knows? But
definitely.
Maybe Robbie Cohn knows. Another one from that Winterland run. The cool thing is the backdrop is one you'll see nowhere else but Winterland, that gigantic rock behind the stage. Brent was still pretty new in the band. And this was early Tiger. Tiger, debuted only a few months earlier. Mm-hmm. So there was definitely a time of transition for the Grateful Dead. And Shakedown Street was like their newest, album.
And this was before Phil and Jerry switched sides.
Right, the great switch. Right, the great switch of 80. What was it? I don't even remember what it was. 83, 84.
Well, it's funny because we would use
82,
that so much.
I have 82. Jerry's on the other side in 82.
Yeah, and people would use that so much as their orientation to venues. Phil's side, Jerry's side. Even if it wasn't a Dead show, we would still say, "Oh, I'll meet you on the Phil side."
Right, because it was just a common knowledge.
And exactly. I was at a show recently, and somebody who's a Fish fan said, "Oh, I'll meet you on the Mike side," and the person she was saying that to had no idea what she meant. Mike side, Page side. If you're going to see Fish,
it transcends to other bands as well.
Yeah, very cool.
This series here. This was at William and Mary College in April 15th, 1978. Phil, there's other ones from this series, but Phil, I was hanging out behind in the back of the place because we got there early and spent the day on the campus, William and Mary College, Williamsburg, Virginia, coming out from the show the night before at Blacksburg, Virginia, where they did that a cappella three of them at the mic deal. But anyhow, Phil was hanging around. He came out. I got a picture of him coming out of the bus and just hanging out amongst us, you know?
Yeah, those people there, those are just some heads hanging out.
Yeah, there's a security guard just kind of watching on. And these folks, he's holding a pen in his hand because these kids were there. They had this banner that they were going to hang at the show, and they had it with them, and they asked Phil to sign the banner. And I think in some of the subsequent shots, we got Phil signing the banner for them. I don't know if you could advance to those.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's him coming from the bus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there he is, stopping for a second. What I love about this is that old car. Like, what is that car? Like a 76, Chrysler or something.
Yeah.
You just don't see cars like that anymore. He's wearing the Duke shirt because they played there a few nights before. And there's a great video of that where their band is quite animated.
And yeah, Phil always makes some great faces. Oh, there's Phil again with signing the banner. And
so these guys are presenting the banner to him. He's sizing it up and got the pen. He looks like he's taking the cap off the pen.
Yeah. And there's
signing. He got his tongue, like concentrating. His tongue is out.
Yeah.
Very
good. Well, I think we're a little running out of time, and I knew this would happen. There's so much that we can talk about just in this subject, and I know there was other things we wanted to get to too, but it's we're already at the end of the time, and I got something else coming up in a few minutes. But once again, people can go on to Kickstarter on the Kickstarter website and probably just type in Bob Minkin and your book will come up. They can go to bobminkinstore.com.
Minkin Photography Store, but yeah.
MinkinPhotographyStore.com. I know I put it in the thing, and I'll post the links up on the Deadheadland page as well. Anything else you want to say? Closing words or comments?
No, I'm good. You can give CMAC my regards, and I think he's up next, and
right.
Hopefully I'll get it together and head down to Perry's tonight.
Yeah, maybe I'll see you down there. It should be a really fun show.
Oh, it'll be good for sure.
Yeah. And then there's speaking of Andy Logan, I know he's involved in the show tomorrow night. Zach Nugent is going to be at the Great American tomorrow night with his Dead set, and I imagine he's probably going to have a couple of cool Jerry guitars with him, or Andy will bring some. So
yeah, I'll be there for that. I'll be there for sure at Great American tomorrow night.
Great American tomorrow night, and I believe there's still tickets for that available. So there's all sorts of great music coming up, and I know we mentioned there's some more Phil shows coming up. It's great to see you always at shows, Bob, and thanks for coming here today to chat about Phil and about your book, and wish you luck with it, and I look forward to seeing it when it comes out.
All right, well, thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me this morning, and I'm sure I'll see you soon.
All right, thanks, Bob.
All right, take care.
To you soon.
Bye.
And thank you all on Deadheadland. I just want to remind you that Deadheadland is brought to you by our wonderful patrons, and you can become a Deadheadland patron at Patreon, patreon.com/Deadheadland. You can join for free, although it's even better if you join for $1. Think about it. How much money do you spend on Netflix or Apple TV or Prime Video, and how often do you watch them? Deadheadland, you can start at just $1 a month. And how often do you watch Deadheadland? If you watch just once a month, it's a great deal. Now, if you watch 10 shows a month, that's 10 cents a show. Anyways, I'd like to thank our patrons because they're the ones that make what I do possible. Their money helps me pay for my data fees and my expenses. And, sometimes I've got to put energy into the computer or memory cards in the computer. Sometimes I need to put energy into myself as well. And so thank you for that because it really does help. And I encourage you to become a Deadheadland patron as well. And help me continue all of Deadheadland TV. I'm going to sign off now, and I'll be back in just a few minutes, about 6 minutes or so, with CMAC and DSB of the CC here on DHL TV. All right, see y'all real soon. Thank you.